Imagine once upon a time happened every day. Imagine you lived in a world of happily ever after. Imagine you were a Disney princess.
From the ashes of Irontown, spoilers, it's Scraping the Vault. We are a podcast, and we like to listen, or we watch. You listen, damn it. There we go.
Or swear.
Okay, hold on. There we go.
I think you can get away with it.
Yeah, that's a freebie. We podcast the Disney movie straight to video sequels, but this isn't a straight to Disney sequel. This is a video. It's a Mononoke and Princess, and here we go. Hey, I'm Dan. That's Jimmy that you just heard, and
Hi.
Audrey is
Hi.
over there. Hello, there she is.
So
Greetings.
something that you may or may not have known prior to 5 minutes ago, when I learned that technically in the United States, Princess Mononoke is in fact a Disney princess. This film was distributed by Miramax, which is a subsidiary of Disney, and the VHS release was done by Buena Vista Home Entertainment.
Yet it's not on Disney Plus, which means I had to renew my Max subscription.
I
But
rented it on
technically,
YouTube.
Princess Mononoke is a straight-to-video Disney movie.
All right, I'll take it. I was really excited to see where the intro was headed. That's one of my favorite parts of the shows. Where is Dan taking us with this? And was
I don't
not
know. I
disappointed.
don't know where I'm taking you either.
It's
So,
funny.
Dan, you did not know prior to that she was in fact a Disney princess stateside because it was distributed by Miramax, which is a subsidiary of Disney.
Miramax also brought to us by the Weinstein Brothers.
No other problems.
No other problem.
No comment.
Miramax
Princess-
coffee. Miramax
Mononoke-
house coffee. Do you get
Also, the highest. No, go ahead.
it? Okay, so like Maxwell House coffee?
Maxwell,
but
yes.
Miramax House coffee?
Maxwell House,
I've-
former sponsor.
It gets unfortunately it gets shoved down your throat.
I've killed all of the
Coffee.
momentum. This stupid joke.
The highest grossing domestic film of all time in 1997 in Japan
Dang.
was Princess Mononoke.
97? I thought it was 94.
97 is when it came out.
You're getting
in
news from
Japan.
94. I'm not changing that.
Okay. Well researched. 1997, this movie came out in Japan, highest grossing domestic film of all time to that point. The movie to outseed it, this is domestic, Japanese domestic, was the follow-up from the same director, a movie called Spirited Away. Beat Princess
Such a good
Mononoke.
movie. It was
I've heard
really
that's next
hard
year.
to pick between the two. But neither of you
same
had
director.
seen Princess Mononoke, right?
Correct.
True.
And neither
By the way,
have
Go
either
ahead.
of you seen Spirited Away?
I have not.
Oh, okay.
Maybe next year.
This is my first Gilblification.
Ah,
Yeah, nice. Well done. Ghibli.
and
I
you,
stole it from Cinema Therapy.
Jimmy? Is it your
And
first
Audrey.
Ghiblification?
My first Ghiblification, and
Wow.
I watched it last night. Still don't know if I've seen it.
Two Disney virgins pop their cherry to
Pop their
Ghibli.
Ghiblies.
Okay, let me start that over. Two.
I just popped my Ghibli.
Also, if you're listening to this and you're like, wait, I thought they did the Disney sequels. What are they doing now? This is part 3 of our annual series of A Dealer's Choice. It always starts with Jimmy doing some kind of awful Christmas movie. And then and it all started back when Jimmy said, hey, we do a podcast about movies. We should watch the Very Brady Christmas.
Bunch,
and
yeah.
I was like, this is not a Christmas. This is not a Christmas podcast. So I said, if we're going to watch that, then we need to be able to watch something else. And
Like
I said, okay.
for Valentine's Day.
Valentine's Day, it was Perry the first year.
Oh, that's
who was
a real
also
good
a
one.
Disney
Cats?
princess. Cats was Audrey's pick.
That was
Yeah.
I loved that movie in
That was
all
fun.
the wrong ways, you know.
It really introduced some things about myself I was not previously aware of.
Jimmy's a furry. Is what
I
we
wonder.
discovered.
I wonder if this movie did the same.
Well, is
Interesting.
Jimmy a weeb also?
Oh, I'll put it out there. I'm a weeb in remission, and you know sometimes that weebishness comes back to.
What's a weeb?
Audrey, can you explain what a weeb is?
A weeb is the same thing as a Disney adult, but with like manga and anime and Japanese shit. So, sorry.
Well, I don't know if this counts, but would
I'll
Princess
keep it up.
Mononoke been more attractive if she actually was a wolf?
Oh, that's a good question.
Oh no, I don't
was
even want to
thinking
think about
anyway.
that.
Go ahead and call
Damn
in 856.
This was this holds a 93%, or excuse me, an 8.1 out of 10 on Rotten Tomatoes.
8.1.
I can see it.
Interesting.
8.1. 93% of the 117 critic reviews are positive.
And speaking of 93, I thought this movie came out in 1994, so I gathered some top news stories from 1994.
All right, while you
This
do
is
that,
this movie.
Dan, I'm going to find a special field reporter.
Ooh, okay.
Ooh.
And while we're at it, advance apologies for the awful 1994 music that I have found. I had a lot of fun with that. Speaking of, so between what I'm wearing and this, it's just very difficult for me. In the U.S. events, that's what I said. I'm going to stick with it. Olympic figure skater Nancy Kerrigan was attacked, and 3 were arrested in the attack. Aldrich James, a high CIA official, was charged with spying for the Soviets. 4 were convicted in the World Trade Center bombing.
Oh my God.
Bill Clinton was the governor of Arkansas, and he was accused of sexual harassment. Let's see what else. What other wonderful things happened that year? O.J. Simpson was arrested in the killings of his wife, Nicole Brown Simpson, and her friend, Ron Goldman. The U.S. Supreme Court approved a limit on abortion protests. Senate confirmed Stephen Breyer for the Supreme Court. He made wonderful ice cream, so they were like, hey, we need to get you on the Supreme Court. There was Major League Baseball players strike, and Newt Gingrich was named House Speaker. Yeah. Good times. And
Well
great
done.
ones.
1994. I was between 4
Good
and
job,
3.
1994. So was I.
Yay.
And in 1994, this movie maybe was being made.
I'm sure it was
It
being
came
worked
out-
on.
It came
It
out.
was in
It was
development.
being thought of.
A
Guys,
twinkle
before we
in
get in,
Hayao Miyazaki's eye.
Miyazaki, is that how you pronounce it?
Miyazaki, sorry.
Miyazaki. Thank you.
Yeah.
Miyazaki, Iwazaki, we're all Miyazaki.
We all Azaki.
Language.
So the movie, just really quick, the tale of Princess Mononoke is a fantasy adventure. It's an epic struggle between humanity and nature. The story's compelling interests comprised of cursed monsters, an assortment of people driven by ambition, a selfless hero, and vengeful gods are remarkable in that there is no villain. That was an interesting thought. Instead, portraying darkness as hate as it manifests in everyone. Now, no villain. I would argue that Minnie Driver is the villain, but we can get into
Minnie
that.
Driver, but you've been saying bad things about Minnie Driver for such a long time, for as long as I've known you. And it's the first time that you've brought your Minnie Driver as a villain arc to
Oh, no,
this
no.
podcast.
I meant the character she played.
Okay.
I don't
Lady
mean the
Boshi.
person.
By the way, I just want to
Thank you.
explain to Paxton, I don't always wear this stupid hat.
And you look at Audrey's. Audrey has a head. Do you see that?
That's how that happened.
That's Audrey. Okay, so spoilers. I have my son Paxton with me right now. Before I introduce him, I wanted to let you know this is an animated film, as you may or may not know, listener. And are animated movies made for kids?
Yeah, all
Not
of them. All of them.
Always. No.
Turns out not all of them.
Every single one.
Nope.
So when I'm watching this movie, he's up, doing what 10-year-olds do, playing Marble Run. And I turn it on. He comes down maybe 2 minutes in, says, "Hey, can I watch with you?" She's like, "Sure, it's a cartoon for kids. Come
I
on."
warned you. I said this is an adult animated movie.
I did not remember said warning. He came down a couple minutes into watching. There were some arms sliced off, followed by a head being sliced off.
Yep.
But I wanted to bring Paxton in. He's my 10-year-old child. He watched the movie in its entirety with me last night. And so I wanted Paxton to give his true opinion of the movie, his sort of 10-year-old critic's opinion. So Paxton, say hello.
Hi.
Hi, Paxton.
Hello. Thank you for joining us.
So Paxton, what did you think about Princess Mononoke?
Well, it was really hard to understand what was going on. But overall it was a fine movie. Well, it was my first anime movie. So
your first
I didn't know what to expect.
Like you've never watched anime at all?
No.
Wow. That's so
Does
thrilling.
Pokemon count?
Pokemon doesn't count.
No, it doesn't count.
Okay. Wow.
All right,
so
so
your first
Paxton-
time. Go ahead, Jimmy.
I forgot to wear my Chainsaw Man shirt. I was going to wear my Chainsaw Man shirt.
Oh, that's a really good show. Not for kids.
It is a really good show. Definitely not for kids. Jimmy, do not show Paxton Chainsaw Man.
Okay, so he kind of gave his overall impression. Wasn't quite sure what it was about. We're right aligned in that so far. No idea what was happening. At one point, I went to the bathroom and I came back. I was like, "What did I miss?" And he said, "I don't know." And then he went upstairs to check on his marble run. He's like, "What'd I miss?" I don't know.
Paxton, do you have like a general feeling without worrying about being right or wrong? Do you have a general feeling of kind of the vibe of the movie? Like what it kind of is trying to be about?
Well, all I really caught was that a villager or something, or a warrior or a spy, he gets cursed by a hog and has to find a way to cure the curse before bad things happen. So that's all I really got.
All right, that was the episode, everybody.
All
Princess
right.
Mononoke.
My question for you guys: Did you watch it?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, wow. Thanks for tuning in. You guys can catch me on 100 Trillion. It's a Bitcoin podcast. What? So did you guys watch it with the English dub or in Japanese with subtitles?
English dub.
English dub.
Which I think is really solid in terms of dubs versus subs. This is an anime, point of contention. If you're watching Japanese animated shows, do you watch it in the original Japanese or do you watch it in English? And there's sometimes some strange translation that has to occur because the animation is already done. The English voice cast will have to talk in a kind of a different cadence in order to really match up their mouth. Yeah. So that's why I feel like first watch, it's sometimes hard to catch what's happening because they're talking so fast and then they're not talking at all for a long time. Did you find that the case when you were watching it? Like you felt like it was a weird way of talking?
Did you notice that?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, me too.
But
well, before we let Paxton go, sorry, did you have another question, Audrey?
No. I'm so glad you guys watched it.
Before we let Paxton go, Paxton, would you watch Princess Mononoke again?
Yeah, I guess.
What was your favorite part?
I don't know if I had a favorite.
What was your least favorite part?
Probably, well, there's not like one least favorite part, but there's a lot of least favorite parts where the forest spirit comes in and does whatever boring stuff.
That's what forest spirits do.
Boring stuff? What?
I have one last question for Paxton. Paxton, I'm going to show you a picture of an actor. His name is Ernest Borgnine, and I want to know, does he look to you like one of the characters?
Oh my God.
He does.
Which one? Which one?
I forgot his name. But
Chigo, probably the guy with the crazy shoes, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Shoes.
I'm glad I wasn't wrong on that.
Nice. All right. Well, thank you, Paxton.
Thanks
For
Paxton.
coming by.
Thank you.
Oh my gosh. I think I was about his age when I watched it for the first time, and
Really?
the beheadings and the dismemberment also caught me off guard, and I was like, "Uh-oh, this is not a kids movie." I watched it at my friend Jessica Barbagallo's house with my sister, and
Shout
it was
out,
a
Jess.
sleepover. And I think their parents were like, "Well, just throw this movie on. It's animated. They'll
It's a
like
cartoon.
it. It's a cartoon."
It's a cartoon. He says to me, if this were live action, it'd be rated R. I'm like,
Yeah.
you're probably
Yep.
right.
Yeah.
You're right.
Jimmy, by the way, it's as an educator who knows that age and what they're kind of into, anime is big.
Is it?
Yeah. So if you want to explore more anime with the kids, you'll be the cool parent.
Don't watch Akira with them. That's even worse than this movie in terms of gore, violence, and adult themes.
And
But it's a
definitely
really good movie. It's
Yeah,
really good.
and
Don't get me wrong.
Not Chainsaw Man. He has that name for a reason.
No.
Gotcha. All right. So before we get into the movie itself, Dan, you already kind of explored what happened 3 years before the movie came out
It came out in '94.
in culture.
What? That's
Audrey,
what
do you want to
led
give
us
us some?
to
That's
the
right. It was
movie being made. Maybe.
setting the stage.
What
And
were you
then
gonna say?
Audrey, do you want to kind of give us some sort of the purpose for why we chose this movie and kind of your, you already told me or told us that you started, you're about that age, about 10 years old, watched it at a sleepover. Is there a reason you chose this for us to watch?
Well, I don't really know what led to us talking about Ghibli movies. But of the movies that I wanted you guys to see, it was like, I knew Ponyo wasn't good because that's like for 3-year-olds. And then Spirited Away is a little bit more, I feel like it's a little less appealing to a general audience, maybe. Spirited Away has a good balance of more like adult kind of ambiguity, that thing like that people your age will be able to contextualize.
People your age. But I guess my,
You know
my
what I mean?
question, adults. My question is, you have a handmade
No
Princess
boomers.
Mononoke headdress. You have
Yeah.
it, which you'll see, listener, in the show image, Audrey in full. I guess we should call. I mean, technically, she's Princess Mononoke, but they never call her
San.
that.
Her name's
She's
San.
San. So you have San's, like full on outfit. You have a relationship with this movie. Let's talk about that.
Yeah. So I think when I was a kid, my sister and her friends, we would watch a lot of Cinderella and a lot of Pocahontas, and those movies I liked. I enjoyed them. But after seeing Princess Mononoke, I realized I'm like, oh, this is a medium for more kind of complicated themes and topics. And that led me down into like more anime stuff. I liked the style. It was far more interesting to me than like, big, bright, doe-eyed, like, Sleeping Beauty. And while that's very pretty, I feel like there's more interest to me visually to anime. And then I've always liked animated movies more than I like live action movies because of the whole suspension of disbelief thing. Like when I'm watching a live action movie, I almost always start to pick apart like the costume design and the set pieces, and like imagining the actors in a room with someone behind a camera being like, okay, action. And here's a writer who's like giving them a line, or the director who's like, I start thinking more about the way the movie exists, or the way it was constructed in real life, versus like animated movies. That's already a given. Like there's no way that this movie could exist outside of the world that it's in. Does that make sense?
It does. Yeah. Can I go tangential real quick? And as I'm hearing you talk, I think you're much more of an authority on this stuff than presumably Dan and I are. And so I think as we go through the synopsis of this,
I've watched Chainsaw Man, so I clearly know.
I will take full responsibility. I don't know anything about the medium. I don't really fully understand this movie, and I dug into the themes of it and sort of the what's the word I'm looking for? Not hierarchy. The
central conceit.
The history, the mythology, excuse me. I kind of researched the mythology of what it's all, the origins of it. But that, I guess what I want to do as we go through it is kind of set the scene, literally. And then I have questions, and maybe you don't know the answer, but we can explore sort of some of those themes of what happened.
Definitely.
But before we do, my tangent is you'd mentioned the Very Brady sequel. And recently watched Wonka. The Timothy Chalamet joint.
How fun.
Saw it twice now and liked it better the second time. There is a song, Do You Have a Sweet Tooth? And the music, whatever the instrument is, whatever some of the transition is, and specifically it's sounds exactly like the instrumentation from the 1980s straight to video TV, A Very Brady Christmas. Like, it sounds exactly the same. The quality is awful.
So
all I can think of is Brady Bunch transitions.
Should we all go see Wonka?
So it's a prequel to the Gene Wilder version of the story. And if you've seen the Gene Wilder version, the only things that I would say are homages to it are lengthy small print contracts, Oompa Loompas, which are not proportional to the movie that we all fell in love with from 1971, and Willy Wonka's Eccentric. Like, that's kind of the only real tie-in. If you watched one, then the other, like, what the hell is this? And I don't know. Anyway, it's a fun movie. The end.
I'll skip it. I'm seeing Timothy Chalamet later today, and I'm very excited.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Dune. It's just a fun movie. There's no conflict. There's no real villain. It's just
boring.
Silly and fun. I mean, not unlike Princess Mononoke, no real villain.
No! Sorry.
So, okay, back to the movie. Anything else we have before? Do we want to talk about, Dan? Do you want to talk about what you thought it was going to be about?
Yeah, I'm curious.
I thought that it would be like for the first 10 or so minutes, I was like, so does he turn into Princess Mononoke?
I thought the same thing. And then he cut his hair. I'm like, no, he must not be. He doesn't have long hair anymore.
He pulled a Milan right there.
An anti-Milan.
Anti-Milan. But yeah, so no, I just I think I don't have a ton of experience with anime, but I'm exploring it. My issue, I didn't understand the art style initially, like a while ago. It was like I did not understand what they were trying to do. Because like there seemed to be this like variable character fidelity and quality, and like it was almost like a Ren and Stimpy thing. I'm just talking about general anime here. It was like a Ren and Stimpy kind of thing where it was like sometimes very like loose and cartoony, but then sometimes very high detailed, just depending on like the moment. I didn't get that until I watched Monster, not the Charlize Theron movie, but the anime. And I just decided I'm going to try, because I knew it was like, it wasn't a typical anime in that it's like a crime drama kind of thing. And I like, okay, I like Twin Peaks. Let's see if I can get into anime, this is probably going to be the one. And I loved it. And I realized that variable quality thing is actually part of the style.
It's a cool tool.
It's a very cool tool, and it can really, like, there are times in, for example, Monster, where this character is like crying and begging for something. It's comedic, and she goes into full like cartoon mode. She goes from like real human to cartoon in that moment. I'm like, oh, it's an emotional device. I got it. And just like in this one, I think it was more like when you see these little blurby things in the background that are like, in a Disney movie would be more highly detailed. And if you're expecting it to be, then I think it's normal to be like, what's going on? This is lazy animation, but it's not. It's actually like okay, that's in the distance. So all you really need to know is that we can kind of see this flickering idea of a figure out there. Or we just see the motion inside the trees. We don't need to see the character because that's all the character observing would see.
Right.
So like there's a lot of piecing the things together that's actually pretty fun, I think, and cool.
I think it has a lot more life. It's just alive in a way that Disney animation isn't. And not saying that Disney animation isn't lifelike or realistic, but like there's just some quality to anime that, or at least to this movie, that I think is so lifelike. So just full of life. Not lifelike.
Yeah.
Full of life.
If you go into one medium or format or whatever we're gonna genre, I guess, expecting the other, you're not gonna like either. You know.
Well, so I didn't have a sense of what the movie was going to be about. Having zero experience with anime, and this is going to sound probably awful, but I expected light bubblegum Hello Kitty, like a princess movie.
That's what
I
people
expected.
think. Yeah, when you try to tell them that anime is that's their first concept of it, but it's any genre can be an anime. Like, do you like crime dramas? There's an anime for that, and it might have some cartoonish elements where it's like, oh look, I'm making a big expression, but then
there was some of that in this movie too.
And that's what I enjoy. That I like those kind of small elements of comedy because that's more real to me than like if everybody is like, you know, stoic the whole time, or if everybody's like, I'm happy and cartoonish, but now I'm a little sad and cartoonish, you know? Yeah,
this is very, very real. And I like what you said about the film is alive. It took its time. Like it just took its time. That to your point, Dan, I think was very astute. It's like I'm seeing we're stuck. I'm not stuck. We are holding on this landscape of the trees and just holding there abnormally long. And like you said, that's the perspective of the character that we're trying to see through. That's what they would see. And so we don't need to zoom in. Let's take our time with this.
And that's
to really kind of engulf and engross in it.
That's what you would do with a live action film, right?
Yeah.
You would build suspense like that. And so I think anime is such an amazing medium because it takes the time to do things like that. Whereas cartoons are less, not cartoons, but like American style animation is less interested in that atmospheric kind of stuff.
Well, it's not geared because it's geared for low attention span children. And that's not what this was for. Incredibly beautiful, just incredibly beautiful. The sound design
it's
in
so
the
good.
forest, listening to the water rushing or trickling and the birds, and it was just gorgeous. I'm
Immersive.
An hour in before I even realize that I'm an hour in. You know what I mean? Whereas, a lot of these other movies we watch, like, oh God, it's got to be an hour. 15 minutes. What?
And it doesn't waste time. The opening sequence has great action. It's like, and within 3 minutes, you're kind of like, whoa, I got to pay attention. And
so, and I think that's a great transition to what I'd like to do. If you're amiable to it, is kind of, let me set the scene high level on the name of the scene. And then I have a lot of questions, I think, to explore for us. So the first scene, to your point, is Ashitaka and the demon. Okay, this is how the movie starts. It's like this mountainous forest region that's shrouded in mist. And then there's a voiceover that explains about ancient gods and giant beasts that inhabit the forests, owning their allegiance to the forest spirit. This is the first time we hear about the forest spirit. The ancient gods once lived harmoniously with humans, but times have changed. The forest is disappearing, and now is the age of gods and demons. So Ashitaka, which is voiced by Billy Crudup.
Dr. Manhattan.
Very, very quickly.
Oh, him. Okay.
Yeah.
And he was naked the whole time that he was
naturally
and in blue paint.
So he's so this demon boar, covered in kind of black worm sort of things, is destroying the forest, and it's coming towards his village. He's a prince. We get that. And so he tries to protect his village. They have this tower, this lookout tower, which was just beautifully constructed, sculpted. And so he ends up killing this beast, but before he does, the beast kind of wraps its tentacles around, which again in Japanese mythology is something about demonic. I don't remember what it was, but anyway, so it's like poisoned or not pure or like corrupted. That's right. So his arm gets these kind of markings, and then he's brought in front of the council of this. It's set in like the far east of Japan, and I guess the emperor like banished these people to this part of the country.
I think they're just an older culture that didn't adopt more modern technologies. They preferred to live in like balance with nature and keep their traditions alive, and for that reason they're kind of left behind and left alone, which isn't a bad thing.
Some of the YouTubes that I watched place the movie in like 1300s, I think.
Yeah, I think that's what I got too.
Yeah,
and it's you get to see samurai riding around with swords and guns.
That's like a period of modernization, but that also, like with any like industrialization of any kind that happens historically, it's like you have the people who choose to be left out of that, and the people who are left out of that, and it's just all across the board.
What I liked is that they don't really dwell on why that happened. The movie is always looking forward, and it's always moving along, and there's no like, we're sad that this happened to us. They just kind of accept that it's the case, and we get to move forward with the plot.
It's just kind of different points of view.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so he kills the thing, shoots it in the eye, it grabs onto him, marks his arm, which I want to get back to. But it turns out this is a massive boar that's turned into a demon. They call it a tatarigami. Mm-hmm. Now, this boar is, and again, the reason Pax and I had a hard time following it is the names were unfamiliar, so we weren't quite sure who they were talking about.
Mm-hmm.
So is this boar related to the god boar in some way? Is it the same boar?
I don't think it's the same boar. I think they're related just for the fact that they're all boars. But I think it's like these boars are from Virginia and these boars are from Ohio.
But it's all like the boar tribe, right?
Yeah, it's all part of the same tribe. They know this thing. So then, what did it say? So it's I'm just okay. So during the fight, the demon's tendrils latch onto Ashitaka's right arm, which we talked about, and with a killing blow, they dissolve and they burn his skin. And so the villagers rush up the hill. One of them's carrying an elderly oracle. She gives Ashitaka some water to pour over his arm before bowing before the boar, promising to perform rites and asking it to bear them no ill will. The demon bitterly responds, saying that they will know his hate and grief. And then it dies.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, their village is very much about like being relaxed and groovy and peace and like...
But there's a lot of themes here. I'm building up to my questions. A lot of themes about hate, hate and grief. The arm. What do these things on his arm mean? Do they represent hate and grief?
Yeah, it's a visual representation of how hate and grief can eat away at a person. And like, it's unfortunate for Ashitaka, who's pretty innocent. Like, what does he have to do with the things that cause this boar to be in a bad way? That's the message of the movie, is like, or part of the message is don't let hate and grief consume you, and act with compassion even if you are suffering from hate and grief.
Yeah, so basically he goes to the High Council and they're like, that thing's going to basically kill you. You're going to die. So you can either sit around and wait or wait to die, or you can rise to meet your fate. And then she gives him the iron ball, which is effectively an ancient bullet, right? made out of iron that was recovered from the boar's body, believing that this was the origin of the demonic transformation. And so the oracle's like, all right, go west, because that's where this thing came from. And then it says to see...
Going back to the hate and grief thing, before this is a good place to put this. One of the YouTube videos I think it was Cinema Therapy that I watched. They were talking about how like one of the things this movie does really well, and apparently this is something that this director does a lot, is that it's not so much about like good and evil or anything like that. It's just like, these are emotions, these are situations that like we all at sometimes struggle with, but they can lead to the creation of something that is evil. Like the boar isn't evil, but the thing that corrupts it introduces the possibility of evil to the boar and to the situation. And I think Movies with Mikey is another YouTube channel. He said that the director, who I still can't remember his name,
Hayao Miyazaki.
Thank you.
Miyazaki.
At some point he said that Ashitaka's first mistake that he made is that he shouldn't have killed the boar. And from that point on, that makes him kind of a non-person, because he interjected in what was sort of like this spiritual, cosmic, like ebb and flow of things.
I like that you said ebb and flow, because that's something I wanted to make a note of. Like, this movie is it's all about balance in a really interesting way, and what happens when that balance is disrupted and how you find balance again. And it's Tao. I was thinking of the Tao Pu. The whole good. Yeah. There's good and
it's interesting
evil,
too,
and there's evil and good. And
and every character has a point of view that you can look at and go like, okay, if I was in that situation, I would absolutely understand why that's happening.
Yeah. Well, Ashitaka had to stop the boar from ruining his village, so of course he had to kill it.
Totally. Yeah.
Right. What was interesting though is that the villagers, the high, what do they call it? The shaman or whatever. Basically, he's like, you're going to die, and so you're going to leave here. But because you're banished, no one's allowed to look at you. Anybody asks, you're dead to us. Even if you come back alive, you're still dead.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't really have an answer for that. I think it's just their culture. They're very, very insular, and they want to protect their culture, and by letting people in, it dilutes their culture. And if they leave and they come back, if someone leaves the culture, comes back, then they're introducing a virus that might kill off their culture in a way. You know what I mean?
And then his sister, who's not allowed to look at him, gives him her crystal dagger, which comes back at the end. Mm-hmm. What is the significance of this thing? And why does Mononoke put it around her neck? And what?
It's just a gift.
My feeling is that, so he becomes not dead, but like a non-entity. And again, this is borrowing from, I forget which one, Movies for Mikey or the other one. But they were saying that he in most of these stories, it's about a boy who becomes a man, but this is a boy who becomes nothing. And he goes away from the village as nothing, like symbolically. Mm-hmm. And his sister comes and kind of reminds him of his humanity by offering him that. And then that is sort of a button to where, and I'm not remembering any names here, I'm sorry, but when he gives the dagger to one of the wolves, and the wolf gives it to Princess Mononoke, who I'm just going to call her that. That's that in a way reminds her of her humanity, not directly in that moment, but it's sort of like it's a gateway that gets us to the next part where they embrace.
Well, that's the thing. We're skipping really far ahead, but like at one point she's like, I hate that guy. And then like she gets the crystal dagger and like, oh, I love that man. We're in love. We love
she hates it. She hates that guy because she hates the fact that she's human and she wants to be a wolf. Human.
Yeah, I got that.
Because her mom raised her to hate humans as a wolf.
Right. the sound design on the animals too, the sound design on the wolf, like the multi-layered, multi-pitch, and then the gorillas. Also, that their mouths didn't actually really move, which I guess if you're dubbing into English is probably a good thing.
Oh yeah, that's a cheat day.
Especially if you're Billy Bob Thornton, but we'll get into that.
That's the lowest. That's the worst part of the English dub.
And that's like the first character we meet outside of.
Yeah.
I thought it was Sam Rockwell.
His what's it called? It's not his horse. It's a
red-tailed deer.
Animal?
We'll just call it a deer.
Antelope, elk.
Oh, maybe it's an elk. Let's agree it's
the
an
name
elk.
is Yakul.
Yakul. This when I said that this movie, the animation is so alive, it's because they took the time to animate like Ashitaka bowing to his deer or to Yakul. They like show him grabbing the horns. Like, how would he get onto a horned steed?
It looks so natural.
Or like the way he pulls his bow and has to string it before he gets onto the elk to Yakul. Like that is, they put so much, there's so much richness to all of the action and the animation.
No doubt. It's very real. Like the whole thing felt very real. It did not feel animated.
And the effort is put in ways that I think American animation audiences aren't necessarily used to. Like it's very purposeful with the effort that they put in. Like the wormy things on the boar, apparently they animated like every other cell for every other worm. So it looks like surreal and everything's kind of moving, but they were able to animate it very smartly by not having to animate every single one on every single cell. It was like every second or every third, but it was like variable. So it's very interesting how that works. And like little things like, okay, the motion is what's important, or like taking in the big vistas and the like, it's all of it as a piece becomes the effort rather than it just being like, hey, look at that cool character design. Like the characters kind of, they don't all, I was gonna say, they don't all look the same. I'm not saying that, but like but the characters, there's enough distinction, of course, to be able to say that character is that person, that character is that person, but they're kind of all variations of anime character, but then like all the detail that goes into everything else is kind of what matters.
Yeah,
I see what you mean.
To your point also, Dan, I noticed I was taken aback when Ashitaka is walking through the forest on Yakul, and the small amounts of sunlight that shine through the leaves of the trees are passing over his body. And I'm like, somebody had to animate that. Like that was beautiful.
Yes.
So beautiful that I was like, oh my God, that's animated. Holy crap. Like I didn't, it's just, it's exquisitely done. Okay. So then the next scene is the strength of the curse. Okay.
Yeah.
So he and Yakul are rolling along going west, and they come along this valley and they see smoke coming out of the valley. And I guess the samurai are bad, and the samurai are like ransacking the town.
Yeah.
From what I understand, historically speaking, the samurai are like, of course, some were good, some were noble, but then with the dissolution of like any sort of structure for them to be a part of, they just became like roving bad cops.
Okay. So he sees this sort of what we would call injustice. And his right arm with the curse on it visibly throbs, and the strength and accuracy of his arrow takes one of the samurai's sword and lodges it into a tree with the samurai's arm still attached to the sword.
Yep. Not a kid's movie.
That was like moment one. Go, oh. And then the next arrow slices off the other one's head.
Yeah.
And at that point, do you look over at Paxton like, is this okay?
Yeah. I'm like, this might not be for kids. Anyway, so then he goes like washes his arm off, try to cool it down. Audrey, why, and Dan, why does the arm throb? It feels like, is that every time there's injustice? I think
it's reacting to the violence. It hate and evil and corruption feeds on violence. So when he's near it and around it, he's fighting the curse from taking over him. And like all the curse wants to do is hurt and maim and kill and stuff. And Ashitaka has to fight that. The water thing is just water is purification for a lot of cultures,
So he goes into the village. He's hungry. He wants some rice. He gives them a gold nugget, which is worth 4 bowls of rice, but that's not money to them. And so Jigo,
which it should,
Billy Bob Thornton,
Ernest Borgnine.
The gold is probably money, but they use coins instead of pure gold nuggets.
It's just they don't recognize that as their currency, right? But Jigo does. Jigo's Ernest Borgnine, played by Billy Bob Thornton. And this is the first time that I'm like, oh, there's no time for the actors to act. Like, they just got to get the lines in.
Well, there's no time for Billy Bob to act. I think
Sure, that's fair.
I think the majority of the cast does just fine. But I really don't like Billy Bob.
No.
I don't mean this as a criticism at all, but I think a lot of the dialogue is very exposition heavy because it kind of has to be.
Yeah, I suppose so. But
it's sparse too. There's not a ton of dialogue.
That's true.
Which I think is a strength. So when they have to talk, they have to get a buttload of information out in a very short amount of time. So that's why it feels dense and why it requires watching once or twice, I think.
Yeah, so Ashitaka tells Jigo about his experience with the boar and his quest to discover its origins. To your point, Dan, it's an exposition. Shows Jigo the iron ball. Jigo doesn't really think anything of it. And he says, "You're under a curse, so what? So's the whole damn world."
Yeah, and I'm like, I like this guy.
Yeah. But I did not realize that one of the villains, I guess you could say, is Jigo.
Yeah, for sure.
Because he's after the head of the forest spirit animal thing.
Everyone is a villain to some, and I guess this is true for every movie, but especially for this one. Everyone is a villain for someone in this movie.
That's fair.
And it always shifts. Like this guy, Ernest Borgnine, might be the closest thing to a villain that we have in this movie because his motivations are at least.
I think Eboshi might be a little bit.
Which one's that? The
Lady
Eboshi.
Yeah, well, yeah, maybe. I mean, she's kind of an ends justifies the means kind of person because she's like. She has a lot of compassion for the people in her village. She's really,
and she brings in lepers and she takes in and gives these ladies of the night. What do we call them? Sex
prostitutes.
Workers. Yeah, like gives them a home and a purpose.
Yeah,
and they're real people.
Mm-hmm.
So it's hard. It was like a love-hate thing. It's like you can't dislike this person. She's doing right by her people,
right?
But she's also killing the forest.
Well, because that's what. She needs to. She doesn't understand any other way. She's just, this is what I need to do to. And by the way, industrialist, like ruling person. This is not a person who I am normally going to be sympathetic to. And I'm not saying that I necessarily am in this movie, but you can at least understand why she's doing what she's doing. Ernest Borgnine slightly less so, but. I think if we were to apply, there's probably some deep analysis somewhere that we can get to him also just being kind of another point of view.
Yeah.
So
Jigo, I don't really like, and I don't, if he had more backstory, then yeah, I could see where it'd be like, oh, I get why he's doing what he's doing. But from what we get in the movie, he's just in it for the money. That's his only motivation.
Maybe that's it. Maybe he represents a sort of nihilism of like, it's all gonna we're all cursed anyway, so may as well get yours, you know?
There's some character that we haven't gotten to yet who's like, one of his lines is, "Oh, I didn't know the forest spirit made flowers grow." So maybe
Right.
maybe he and Jigo both have become so disconnected from nature and the earth, and that's that they're just uninformed. They're
Like actual ignorance.
actual ignorance, which is that evil, or is it just ignorance? Like, how can you judge that? How do you fit that into this
Like
perfect
not
black
like
and white,
not like
gray?
willful, like motivated remaining ignorant, just like they just don't know.
They just don't know. Whereas Ashitaka, their culture knows, and that's why one of the lines is, "Go and see with eyes unclouded by hate," but it's also go and see with eyes that has a knowledge of the balance of nature and humanity, or nature and humankind. So,
Which ultimately is the thesis statement for this movie.
yeah,
Perhaps
Yeah.
the balance of human nature or I guess mankind and nature. I don't know. All right. So the next scene is it's called Gods and Spirits. Okay. So we have a caravan of, what are they, oxen carrying rice up the side of a mountain. It's raining. And then we see the leader, Lady Eboshi, who's Minnie Driver. She's keeping watch with her first lieutenant named Gonza.
Not gone.
Then they
Potato-headed
notice
man.
they notice two giant white wolves that are charging down the muddy slope. Then there's a masked girl that's riding one of them. Spoilers.
So thrilling action.
Yep. Eboshi orders her men to open fire. They have these primitive guns, which are, from what I understand, based on ancient Chinese, ultimately the original rifle from that part of the world, excuse me. And so open fire, and the shots drive off the wolves, and Gonza remarks that they weren't so big, and Eboshi says, "Well, wait till you see their mother." As if on cue, Moro is the large white wolf, attacks the caravan, sending people and the oxen tumbling down the mountain. And Eboshi's like, "Yeah, they're dead. Let's move on."
She gets a shot into Moro. She
That's true. Oh yeah, and San sucks out her blood, or the poison. That's the first time we see her. We're skipping ahead a little bit, but is that what she's
through
doing?
the movie?
Yeah.
Well,
Because I mean, I don't think Princess Mononoke. I don't think she understands
Princess
that
Mononoke.
there's a bullet in there, and that's the thing that you have to get out.
but that's what she's doing, right? She's sucking the poison out and spitting
she's
it out.
trying to.
Right?
Yeah.
Meanwhile, at the base of the mountain, Ashitaka arrives at the swollen river and sees these bodies floating and
420
pulls them out of the water.
Do you think that her being a human has some significance to being able to get the poison out from the bullet? Because if we're saying that these bullets corrupt these creatures, and the humans make the bullets,
that's what I got. Is that the lead in the bullet is corrupting and making these creatures demonic?
maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
That's what I got. It's
I
sort of
think
this
it's-
Western technology is destroying the forests and creating these weapons because they're mining this lead. Right?
Yeah. There's a line
Yeah.
where there's a line where it could literally be lead poisoning, and then there's a line where it's just magic bullet make people go crazy.
Yeah. So here it is. This is. I guess I didn't skip that far ahead. So Ashitaka looks across the waterway after he saves these people and sees San, who's with Moro, with Mom, trying to suck the bullet from her wound and spitting out the blood. And then Moro's growling alerts San to Ashitaka's presence. Now, Claire Danes voices San
Yeah. She does okay.
in what I watched. She does okay.
There's parts of it where she's like, she sounds a little bit Valley Girl to me.
Yeah. So he introduces himself and asks if they're ancient gods, and San says, "Go away," and then she leaves.
'Cause she hates
Holy-
humans.
okay, so to make the bullets, you have to pull the material out of the earth, which is destroying the earth, which is corrupting the earth, which is making a corrupted material. I don't know.
Yeah. Do you guys watch Primitive
that's fair.
Technology on YouTube? There's
No.
this guy. Oh my God. It's an amazing channel. This guy goes into the Australian bush and he makes like pottery from clay that he finds in a creek. And then he builds like a bellows, and he's working his way, a one-man silent video with captions, working his way towards the Iron Age. It's the most interesting channel on YouTube, if you ask me. But
you haven't seen WWNT.
Oh boy.
Check it out, Primitive Technology. But he had, in his latest video, he makes an iron bar, and the way he does it is he pulls iron bacteria from a river, and then he condenses it. He makes charcoal with, like, I'm talking a guy who starts a fire with 2 sticks. And then he's handmade with like braided rope from grass. He's handmade this bellows system that can heat the fire, heat the charcoal. He throws the iron bacteria in it. And eventually, after like hours of work, he gets tiny, tiny iron prills. And like, then he puts it in a ceramic thing, which is pottery that he fired using like freaking his hands and his feet. Like, this is,
damn.
So I just watched this
Technology?
video. Primitive Technology. I had just watched this video, and now I'm watching Princess Mononoke, and like the amount, you know, she employs hundreds of people in making iron, and the amount of effort and time and energy that goes into making iron in this movie, which is fairly realistic, compared to one guy, it's just like, oh my gosh, the world we live in today is so advanced, and
much better. It's much. Thank you for saying that. It's so much better. I agree.
So human flourishing, like for the people living in that time period, they had to deal with a bunch of, you know, crazy shit, but like their lives get better the more energy and effort they put into this. And yes, it's at the cost of the environment. But think of how everybody's lives have improved and how much less time it takes you to literally survive, like wake up, find food, versus today you like roll out of bed and like open the fridge.
Right.
You know,
right.
It's just
it's
so
interesting.
So it's interesting to think about.
So at this point we're introduced. So God, I'll get his name eventually. Ashitaka saves these 2 guys.
It's the name you use in the room that we're in right now.
I know. So he saves the one, and he ends up carrying the other guy on his back, which felt like a never-ending hill. But this is where we get introduced
Ashitaka
to
is
Kodama.
goated. Ashitaka is so freaking OP.
He is
so
goated AF.
Beefcake. So
Anyway,
they're climbing up a hill. They meet Kodama.
Kodama. So these are little forest sprites.
Spirits.
That rattle. Their heads rattle.
Yep. Just a fun little thing.
He assures these 2 guys that means that the forest is healthy. Like, this is a good sign. The fact that these things are here, that's a good sign. And then he asks them for safe passage. He follows them, carries one dude on his back. The other one's riding on Yakul, right?
Yes. And this is where I like their little bits of humor that they put into the movie, because it's not completely adult. Like, there's parts that make you laugh and kind of like they're childlike. You know, the two little Kodama carrying each other on his back, and he like looks over and he's like, I see you.
Imitating. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, so cute.
So they lead to this like mysterious part of the wood where mossy trees grow among pools of clear water. Ashitaka sees the footprints of San and the wolves in the water, knowing that they're fresh, right? And then he scans the area and spots a herd of deer followed closely by one with many antlers.
I've heard of deer. They're in the movie. Anyway.
It stops and Ashitaka's arm suddenly throbs, which I don't understand still. And it moves on its own. And he tries to subdue it. Like he's trying with all his might to prevent his arm from going crazy.
Oh, because the forest spirit is near.
Yeah, but why?
I don't know.
If before it was like to get rid of evil, like the trigger was to stop hatred and injustice. Why was it so upset with the forest?
I think it's maybe like they're like on a wavelength, like there's something super spiritual is happening nearby. You know,
Ooh. Like the forest spirit is completely neutral, whereas his arm, the curse is 100% evil, and so it needs
maybe the evil was trying to get out.
It's like they're kind of they're of a type, you know.
Yeah, maybe. So, but then after they touched the water, all of a sudden it was easier to carry the dude on Ashitaka's back, and the other guy said that he felt better too. And then he's like, then he doesn't really. Yeah,
well, he was like, oh, well, you know how like it was a placebo thing for him. He's like, I feel great. Wow, everything's fine. Just kidding. Like I don't know. I think it's because it's such a sacred place in the forest that it has lessened the effects of the curse in his arm, and also, it's revitalizing. That's the way I see it.
Okay, then we get to Irontown. Now,
Master Blaster runs Irontown.
Let's call this the sort of this is where we get into the heart of the movie, right? And so Irontown is run by the Eboshi lady, and it's sort of run by sex workers.
Yeah. Lady Eboshi, being the entrepreneur that she is, she goes to the brothels and lifts these women out of sex work into a more stable, respectful line of business.
Which is why sex work should be legalized. It is real work. That way, weird ruler person cannot take advantage of their social position and it basically enslaved them.
So arguably,
the end.
I'm not going to
fight everybody. Thank you.
I'm not. I have a different opinion on that, but I'm not going to get into it.
Arguably worse than Billy Bob Thornton is Jada Pinkett Smith as Toki, let's call her the leader of the brothel people.
Yeah, I don't love her casting. Toki in the original audio is way better, but then
with subtitles, I presume.
Yeah, but then you miss out on the beauty of the animation because you're reading the subtitles, I think. So Toki's a boss ass bitch running Irontown with Eboshi. Well, not running it, but she's the middle management.
Yeah. So then Eboshi comes back, sees Ashitaka, and she's like, "Hey, I want to talk to you later." And she's like, she asks about his intentions, and he's like, "I want to see with eyes unclouded by hate." And then she laughs and agrees to show her secrets. And her secrets are they're smelting lead to make bullets.
Her secrets are she's a good person because she's helping people, lepers. Yeah. But yes,
I think in some ways it's advantageous for her to have the outward appearance of like a cold, uncaring person, but I think her secrets are that she's not. Say intelligent things. I'm going to go grab something for like 10 seconds.
All right. But so then Audrey, so she wants to destroy the forest to mine it for this metal. Like, what's her point? What does she want?
She wants to make people's lives better, and she's misguided in attacking the forest.
Through creating weapons? Because that's what it feels like. They like make these weapons so that are lighter for the women to carry, and destroy the forest so that they can mine it for these weapons. And I don't know if this is true, but when I see Avatar, the original, there were homages to Pocahontas and to Fern Gully and Princess Mononoke. Am I right?
Sure. It's
Am I
been a while
stretching
since
there?
I've seen that movie. Here's
As someone who has watched Chainsaw Man, I can agree that is absolutely true.
okay. Here's my take. They're building weapons. The scene earlier in the movie where you see the samurai just ransacking a village. It's there's more than one conflict in this movie, and the other conflict is human versus human. And Lady Eboshi is not only bringing these women away from dangerous people who would pay to use them for sex, but also giving them a way to protect themselves. So, don't take my guns.
But it just felt like,
I mean, that is a point of
just-
view. Yeah.
maybe I'm just taking the point of view from San. This woman is destroying the forest, and ultimately that's what this movie is about. Is man is destroying forest. These forest creatures are sentient, and if they destroy the forest, then these animals are just going to become animals. Boars are just going to be dumb animals once they destroy the forest.
Yeah.
Right. So
think-
what is she trying? What is Eboshi trying to do?
I think she's. I think she's adopting the idea, and it is an idea. It is a philosophy that one can have that if you just have so much firepower that you are literally impossible to defeat, then it is advantageous. It's the second time I've used that word. To your people. It is in whatever way. I mean, it follows that you will be safe if you have way more guns and weapons than you need.
But that's what it feels like her whole point is mining this ore to make weapons. That's the whole point. She wants to destroy the forest. San is upset.
I think her destroying the forest is secondary to her wanting to acquire weapons.
I think I'm with you, Dan. And I think there's context that they give that I can't remember right now. Like the reason that they couldn't just mine peacefully. Like there was a way they could have done this peacefully in the first place, but something went wrong. And I can't remember what it was. I think it's because they drilled too deep or something. So they drilled deep enough to piss somebody off. And then the forest attacked the villagers, and now they're going back and forth, and now she's just trying to like get the upper hand by absolutely demolishing everything.
Yeah, so, I think she sees herself as like being or she sees her role as being like under attack from both of these forces, two separate forces. Like she's trying to fight this one force that is human, and then in order to do that, she had to go into in quotes, go into the forest to acquire more raw materials. But in doing that, she angered the forest spirits. And now it's like, well, I have to attack them because I have to do this thing that will help me fight this other thing.
Yeah. She doesn't see that she has
what she's trying to do.
She doesn't have a choice. She has to do this. Like she doesn't see any other way out.
Let's move forward. Maybe I'll land there. I don't fully understand what she's trying to do. San comes in. She attacks. Mm-hmm. She comes after, and Ashitaka doesn't like this. Like, hey, what are you doing, lady? I saw you sucking the blood out of the wolf earlier, so I really like you now. And like, you're getting into a trap. What are you doing?
Listener, you just go ahead and make the joke that I was going to make. To yourself.
Okay. So he's like, yeah, this is a trap. Like there's no way out of this. What are you trying to do? And then his like poison arm tentacles come out. And then like the main henchman guy comes in. He easily bends the sword because he's really angry about effectively the injustice of it all. I don't know. And then San is trying to attack Eboshi to kill Eboshi. There's no way San's getting out of this. And so Ashitaka, his arm comes alive, bends the thing, comes out, saves her. They shoot her in the mask and basically the mask breaks and she becomes unconscious, and then he picks her up to carry her out, and he gets shot right through the body,
By
bleeding all
accident.
over the place.
Yeah.
And they're like, as an accident?
Well, the woman with the gun is pissed because her husband's
she was
not
mad
dead.
because
Yeah.
her husband's dead. Yeah, so
Because
she
one
was
of the
trying to kill
wolves-
San.
Yeah, she wanted
Right.
revenge, and she hesitated, which you could tell that she really didn't want to be a murderer, but somebody bumps
Right.
into her, she gets startled, and then the gun goes off and accidentally hits Ashitaka, who, again, is completely innocent in all of this stuff, aside from the part
Right.
where he had to kill the boar, which was going to destroy his village if he didn't.
Right.
So
So then go ahead.
you go ahead.
So he carries her over his
you go ahead.
shoulder.
Both of
No,
you.
no.
after you.
Same time.
So carries San over his shoulder as he bleeds out,
hmm
and then he's like, "Let me out of here," and they're like, "No." And then he's like, "I'm going to open the door," and they're like, "It takes 10 men to do this," and he uses his magic poison arm
Again,
Mhm.
completely
and
goated.
pushes. Still don't know what that means.
Greatest
Pushes
of all
the door
time.
open. Yeah, I know what
that's
goat is, but how is he goated?
He's so freaking, what a cool character. Continue.
Yeah, indeed. Pushes the door open with his magic poison arm. And then they end up back in the little Forest Glen thing where basically San's like, okay, you're going to die here now.
You're moving pretty
And-
fast. You're moving.
Okay, go ahead.
You're
Sorry.
moving fast.
Sorry.
So the ghostly arm apparition, that's like the hate
Yes.
becoming so strong. He's reacting to
Right.
San and Eboshi, and I think he sees how kind of pointless their conflict is. And the conflict is visually represented by the evilness in his arm. That's consuming them. And it's literally consuming him, but figuratively consuming the other two. And
It's almost like reaching out to like that familiar energy kind of thing.
yeah, it's
like, oh, I know what this is.
same wavelength. It's getting excited
Yeah.
because it likes violence.
Yeah.
It likes conflict. And it's so strong. But Ashitaka, again, is like a completely compassionate and neutral person. And he's level-headed and he doesn't have any reason. He looks at it and he says, why are these two people fighting? Like they could find a peaceful resolution or something. Anyway, but yeah, so he escapes with San. They ride out into the hilltop. He becomes unconscious. San wants to kill him, but then she realizes she has some compassion or she has some humanity. He's just saved her life. And so now she's taking him to the Forest Glen and she's making a plea to the dear God to save his life.
Yeah, didn't get too far ahead, did I?
What I find
Right.
interesting
I
is that
just thought there was some
Ashitaka,
detail missing.
No, you're right.
Ashitaka is not like a weirdo peacenik. Like when he needs to resort to violence, measured violence, he does, and he can without really any hesitation. But it's more like, and I agree with him wanting to find a peaceful solution. But I think also in this situation, it's more just like, I think he understands that like nothing will get fixed or resolved by either of these two people getting their way.
Yeah.
Like it is just, there's nothing good can come from an extension of this. So it needs to be stopped.
I don't mean to go back, but there's also a really important scene where Ashitaka is hanging out with the men in the ironworking town. And the men are all like, yeah, it's pretty
Right.
ridiculous. We had to burn down this tree. And like, oh, can you see this stuff? Like their attitude and the tone in that scene, I think is so interesting. And Ashitaka, because you can feel him getting pissed off because he's angry.
Yeah.
He's like, why are you guys taking this? Why aren't you taking this seriously? Because I'm getting hurt. The forest is getting hurt. Like I like that scene a lot.
Yeah, and it was interesting culturally how the men were eating, presumably before the women.
I don't
And
know.
the women were kind of like sitting outside watching while the men ate.
The
I
ladies,
don't know.
well, they have their shifts on the bellows, and I think the guys.
Yeah,
have the-
and their shifts are 48 hours long?
it takes a lot of energy to make
4
iron.
days
Yeah.
at a time?
I don't
I
know.
don't know. Is that 4 8-hour shifts or like 48 straight hours? I don't know.
I don't know.
They never
All right,
did. the
so
math.
I'm going to read this just to get us on track, and I think this gives some clarification. So Yakul
Thank you.
carries Ashitaka and the unconscious San to the mountainside. Soon, however, The loss of blood causes Ashitaka to fall from Yakul, and San awakes just in time to see him fall. One of San's brothers, who's a wolf, attacks Ashitaka, but San calls him off before confronting Ashitaka about stopping her from killing Eboshi. She holds his sword to his throat, but he tells her to live and that she's beautiful.
Works every time, bro.
I guess this shocks San, but she is then interrupted by the ape clan who want to eat Ashitaka in order to become strong enough to regrow the forest. San's brothers chase the apes away when they insult San since she is human. She then convinces her brothers to leave Ashitaka with her. She calls Yakul, whose trust she gains, to help her carry Ashitaka into the forest. Then we get into the domain of the forest spirit.
Yeah. I wrote a note about the monkey scene. I think it's the monkey, the nature wanting to become more like humankind is wrong. And that's why it's so disturbing to San. Like the fact that the gorillas want to eat a person isn't the normal way of things. And that's why she reacts. And the whole, like, you're beautiful thing. I don't think any person has looked at her that way. She's always just been an enemy. So to see
animal, because she doesn't interact with humans.
Yeah. To see and experience that is also alarming to her.
Well, I think also that he sees, I think, inherent. So he sees this isn't the first time he's seen her. So it's just like, oh, you're sexy. Let's do it. It's like, I have seen your character. I've seen what you stand for. I've seen a pretty good idea of a lot of different sides of you. I've seen you as a human. I've seen you as a wolf, and you're beautiful.
He sees all of her. Oh,
right.
Yeah.
So romantic.
So I have 18 more pages. So I think what I'm going to do.
Yeah. Sorry.
No, not that. I think if we kept going the way at the pace we're going, it's going to take us a very long time.
Well, Audrey has a movie to get to.
I'm sorry.
I'm skipping down
to
Timothée
Chalamet.
Hello.
I'm skipping down to the 2-page version of this.
Okay.
Because I think we've explored a lot of the themes and a lot of kind of the questions that I had about it. So the next scene, of course, is when what I alluded to before is that they go to the little forest glen, and the spirit of the forest effectively sucks out the poison from Ashitaka, and he lives. But before that happens, the little tree that was planted, I think San planted a tree at his head, like sort of his headstone, dies. So does something have to die in order for something to live?
Oh, maybe the headstone doesn't need to be there anymore.
Oh, maybe.
Jimmy,
but yeah, that might be it
something.
too. Yeah, I think that's probably more
symbolic.
Yeah, that's probably better. By the way, that thing's face is terrifying.
The balance
It's
it's
like
cool...
maybe because like Paxton described it as a horse and an antelope and a deer with a porcupine head and a human face.
Mm-hmm.
How did you feel when you saw it? Like this is so
I did not understand it.
And
it is definitely supernatural.
Oh.
I like that it is the way it is. I want to be clear about that, but it's definitely a possibly haunts your dreams kind of situation, which I think a god would need to be.
I love how they animate him stepping along and the plants like blooming and dying. The whole it's like life and death in one creature.
I liked how it could walk on the water.
Yeah.
And then towards the end when Eboshi shoots it, it sinks into the water.
And the face gets kind of derpy. It's like interesting.
This movie
and then it just takes a minute, steps back up.
Yeah. I'm so glad Hayao Miyazaki exists because this movie is so fascinating. So cool to look at. I don't think I've ever seen anything else that's like with the same level of creativity and weirdness. That's why I'm drawn to
Lost
it.
Highway.
All right, I'll check it out.
Okay, so
I don't know if I mentioned this. I love how this movie is suspenseful, but not in a scary way.
right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so picking up in the shorter version, San infiltrates Irontown and fights Eboshi, but Ashitaka intervenes and subdues them both. Amidst the hysteria, a villager shoots him, but the curse gives him strength to carry San out of the village. San awakes, tries killing weakened Ashitaka, but hesitates when he compliments her beauty. She decides to trust him after the forest spirit heals his bullet wound that night. The next day, a boar clan led by the blind god Akoto plans to attack Irontown to save the forest. Okay, so this is our first introduction to boars outside of the opening scene, right?
Mm-hmm.
Really interesting character.
Very. Yeah, and now this character's been dead for 100 years.
I don't know. I think
they
he's
say
old as F.
He's just super old.
I want to make a clarification. The dear god does not heal Ashitaka's curse. It just heals his bullet wound.
Sure. Okay. Right. Yeah. I apologize. The curse is not lifted.
The curse is not lifted. Yeah, and it's an interesting. It makes Ashitaka and San's relationship a little more interesting because she works so hard to keep him alive.
Because she ends up with the curse also
towards the end. Yeah.
Towards the end. Yeah. And then we'll talk about how they both get lifted, how that curse gets lifted later. But okay, so the next day, Boar Clan, Eboshi sets out to kill the forest spirit.
There are parallels to Brother Bear too. I just want to say that.
Okay, that's fair. Bringing it all around. So Eboshi intends to give the god's head to the emperor, who believes it will grant him immortality in return for protection from Asano. Who's Asano?
Asano, I think, is the clan attacking Eboshi's people and the emperor's people or something.
Okay. While Jigo, Billy Bob Thornton, desires the large reward being offered from the head of the forest god.
Money, motivation.
Yeah.
Well, and power, I think. I guess so if he delivers the head to the emperor will be immortal and then be able to reward Ernest Borgnine.
That's right, with money.
Yeah.
With money.
Okay, so that 17 pages is now down to 2 paragraphs.
Yay!
Ashitaka recovers and finds Irontown besieged by Asano's samurai. Figured out who Asano is. The Boar clan has been annihilated in the battle. Any thoughts about this? Because it was all kind of a flashback, right?
No, this is all happening concurrently.
Well, maybe that's when I went to the bathroom, because then I saw because everything was demolished, and they kind of told the story of how it all happened with the bombs and the kind of the what do they call those, the grenades and stuff.
Oh yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah, Ashitaka comes across a pile of burning boar bodies.
Right.
Because the wolf mother is like, listen, shit's about to go down and I want you to get out of here. And nature's making its last stand and the boars are making their last stand. And I think it all happens over the course of a day or two. While the boars are attacking Irontown, Irontown's also getting attacked by a samurai clan. And we learn all of this as Ashitaka is brought up to speed by one of the wolves or something.
And Princess Mononoke wants to go with the super old boar because he's blind, and she feels like she needs to be his eyes.
And she wants to fight on behalf of the forest.
Right. But that's her motivating her like the thing that makes her more motivated. She's like, he's blind. He needs me.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So Akoto, who's the blind boar, wants to get to the forest spirit god, the deer man.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And Jigo's men dress up wearing the skin of these killed boar.
Disguised.
And he can't. Yeah, they're disguised so that because Akoto can't see, he can only smell. He can just smell the animals of his people, or the flesh of his people. So these men are dressed up, wearing their skins. And so then he leads them to the forest spirit.
And prior to this, they bring in some context that the boars have become stupid.
Yeah, and that's what's going to happen. They're just going to become dumb boars if the forest gets destroyed.
That's also mirrored in the people. You know, the guy from Irontown.
Oh yeah, interesting.
Toki's husband. He's just like, oh, I didn't know that is how that worked. He doesn't have any connection to nature. He's dumb too, and I think by extension, Lady Eboshi is dumb. Like she doesn't have the intelligence with nature that Ashitaka does. Same way that the boars don't have intelligence with like the way of things anymore that they used to.
I think it's like anytime you have a singular focus or an obsession over a acquisition of something or revenge or hatred or whatever, it makes you dumb and you don't think about what you bring into the world and and then that's when actual evil can be introduced.
Yeah. Ooh.
Okay,
that's good.
So then Akoto driving all these men dressed in boar skin to the forest spirit, brings her to the pool of the forest spirit. Ashitaka then rescues San, who gets wrapped up in the demon corruption of Akoto.
We didn't. We skipped a part where Akoto is. He's convinced, like, my tribe, my soldiers, whatever, they have risen from the dead and they're fighting, and I'm going to go with them, and we're going to.
He can't see.
Yeah, he can't see. He can only smell them, and so he's in this like blind revenge fantasy. He's just like, this and Princess Mononoke's trying to stop him, and he's like, no, this is happening. This is a sign that the forest god has chosen us, and we're going to be victorious. And he gets filled with more and more like of that vengeful rage and hate, and that's when
he gets corrupted.
So
he gets corrupted and becomes like the boar in the beginning of the movie with the little worms coming out. And then San gets kind of wrapped up into that.
Because she realizes what's happening. She's like, no, stop. Come to your senses.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then, so as everyone clashes at the pool of the forest spirit, Ashitaka rescues San from the boar. Mm-hmm. And at that point, the forest spirit euthanizes Moro and Akoto. Like the wolf mom and the boar head.
Ashitaka tries to rescue San, but then he gets kind of thrown off the boar, and so then the wolf mom, who's just she's on death's door because she's been poisoned by the bullet from earlier in the movie. She finally makes her last attempt, and she chomps into the boar spirit's face and then grabs San out, and that's how she is rescued. Right,
and the forest spirit kills them both.
Yep.
And then like, the sun's about to rise. And so the night, or the forest spirit's going to transform into the Night Walker. Yeah, and it's at that point that Eboshi decapitates it.
Yeah, this is how you kill a god. What a great line.
Yeah, and so at that point, a very much like a Raiders of the Lost Ark of the Covenant.
Yeah, definitely.
Thing. Jigo steals the head, puts it in a locked case. While the forest spirit's body then starts to like bleed and ooze and spread over the land and kills everything it touches, trying to find its head.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
The forest and its spirits begin to die. Moro's head briefly comes alive and bites off Eboshi's right arm.
So sad.
And
I don't
she
like
says, because she's like, see
dying.
it. Yeah, the Kadamas die, right? And even Eboshi said a wolf's head will still bite after it's been cut off.
Yeah, that was a good.
That comes back to bite her in the arm.
MacGuffin.
She survives, obviously. Eboshi does.
Mm-hmm.
An enraged San tries to kill Eboshi, but she is stopped by Ashitaka, who consoles her and encourages her not to give up. So Ashitaka's journey is very much like, I don't know whose side he's on.
He's on the side of things working out. He's just on the side of, okay, this bad thing is happening. We got to figure out how to keep the bad thing from happening.
So after Irontown is evacuated, And so this is the spirit animal, it's just destroying everything until it finds its head. Irontown's evacuated. Ashitaka and San pursue Jigo and retrieve the head, returning it to the forest spirit. The spirit dies, but its form washes over the land, healing it and lifting Ashitaka's curse. Ashitaka stays to help rebuild Irontown, but promises San he will visit her in the forest. Eboshi's vows to build a better town, and the forest begins to regrow. So that's the end of the movie. So giving the head back, the curse is lifted.
Mm-hmm.
Why are they going to rebuild? So first of all, okay, peace out, yo. This, I think you're pretty. Movie's named after you.
Well,
you go do your
that,
thing.
to be fair.
I'm going to go build this town, which was like the evil thing to begin with. Like, what are we doing rebuilding this town? What are we doing here?
He's the liaison. He and San are the two liaisons between the natural world and the industrial world. And Ashitaka can't go back to his village. We've already figured that out. But like, he realizes that this town needs somebody like him to keep them in check. So that's why it makes sense to me that he's going to help them. And he's always been kind of
what? What is this town about?
I think it's
the town is about
that
lifting.
better town.
Yeah, it's improved so many people's lives, and Ashitaka realizes that. He's left a village that is completely set in tradition that will never improve. Like, people are still, using bows and arrows to hunt when it takes less time and effort to use a gun. Maybe that's not the best example.
It
but
takes a village to raise a forest. Is that what?
Well, I think it's also like, I want to push back just slightly on the idea of better, but only to say that, like, this is what these people know. To go back to a purely agrarian sort of lifestyle,
that's
would
going
be
backwards.
Not that for them, they would be going backwards, and they would resist that, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
But they can find some kind of balance between, like, okay, maybe we don't need to suck every bit of iron ore out of the earth. Maybe we can just have this set amount and have build in a reasonable way that is actually sustainable, and actually we can still take care of our people while also respecting that sort of harmonic dissonance in a way,
Yeah.
There is always, I think it's a recognition that there is always going to be that conflict, that disagreement, but at least, like, we're given this moment of, like, okay, for right now, we're given, all the sides are given a chance to kind of just chill out and reconsider our options.
Okay, so I would like to leave you with this, the last line of the movie, which I would like to talk about a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So
Rosebud.
Lady Eboshi, recovering from the loss of her arm, is humbly optimistic. Sitting with her women and Gonza, she promises to start anew and build a better town. She sends for Ashitaka to thank him. Jigo, Ernest Borgnine, perched on the rocks high above
have died.
with his one remaining porter, laughs to himself, saying, "Well, I give up. You can't win against fools."
Yeah, it's a line. I wonder what the English subtitles would read.
Oh, interesting.
Because maybe
this,
it's
by the way, this script was written by Neil Gaiman,
Mm-hmm.
which is interesting.
I saw his name in the
think
credits
English
and I was
version.
like, oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, he wrote the English version of it. But before we explore that, around the dead trees near the forest spirit pool, new trees are growing. Among them walks a little white Kadama, rattling his head.
Yay, what a great ending
There is
shot.
hope left.
Yeah.
Yes.
Maybe Jigo's line is something like he's out of touch with nature. So he's an idiot saying, well, there's no helping idiots. It's the Dunning-Kruger thing, maybe.
I think I don't know if what I'm saying agrees or disagrees with what you just said. I think that everyone presents a point of view, but not in a way of like, R2D2 is symbolic of this, blah, blah, Tigger is symbolic of ADHD. Not like that. It's just like everyone naturally has a point of view because they're people, and people will all have a point of view.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that Ernest Borgnine's sort of worldview is that it's all corrupt anyway. Why? Who cares? What is it? What does it mean? He's not going to learn anything because he's not looking to learn anything. Even if he is shown, I think he represents willful ignorance, like nihilism as a choice, which, I mean, that exists in the world and it's very easy to slip into. It's how I lived several years of my life, to be honest. Leaving it in. Bless you. No, I'll take that out.
All right.
I got to leave it in now.
Leave it in.
Okay. But I think he's also I think that line sort of points out that like this story is a part of we're just catching this story in a part of a cycle that will continue forever, because that's just how things are. Like, okay, yeah, things are great. Yeah, they might build a better village, and the forest creatures might, maybe there will be harmony here, but there's always going to be that thing that's just like, yeah, still going to get mine, and in time, maybe it won't be Ernest Borgnine, but maybe it'll be one of his buddies will be like, hey, let's go invade that. I hear that village doesn't have as many weapons. Let's go take it over.
Yeah, well.
Join us for Princess Mononoke 2, The Way of Water.
Oh, God, I hope they never make a Princess Mononoke 2.
It doesn't strike me as this kind of guy's a sequel guy.
I realize Jigo has to live because it is a nuanced world. Like, if they killed, if he has to exist in this world because good, evil, and ambiguous exists in the world. And that's, right. That's the point that Hayao Miyazaki's making. And you have to find a reason to live either way.
But the way I understand it, the forest is back and regrowing, but all the animals are now just animals. They're no longer sentient godlike. They're all just animals now.
And maybe. I think it's sad a little, but that's it. It brings me back to the point I make with the way Ashitaka's village is dying. Like, it's just, that's the way it is now. And we can be really sad about it, and we could be really upset about it, or we can find a better way to move forward and keep the plot moving, and like not lose sight of not take for granted what we still have in front of us.
Yeah. Well, I guess this movie can mean whatever you want it to mean. It's left for interpretation, as we've explored. I think that it is an incredibly beautiful film. It's something that you could just have on in the background as just a backdrop. It's gorgeous.
Shout out to Joe Hisashi for the best soundtracks ever. Naturally, yeah.
I'm really glad we saw it. I'm really glad we watched it. I think it's probably gonna live with me for a while. As I find.
Do you plan on watching more Ghibli films?
If Audrey
and possibly
says
more, more anime as an extension.
I'm joking. I would not. So historically, I've just not sought it out because like I'd mentioned in the beginning, I had no idea what it was about, and Audrey sort of explained anime is not necessarily a style. It's a style of film making, not necessarily a genre.
Yes, that's exactly
like anime isn't a genre. It's anime as a style of telling a story. Like you said, it could be a crime drama. It could be whatever this movie was.
Cyberpunk dystopian future.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, I'm really glad we saw it. I'm gonna live with it. Odds are, after having explored the themes and everything with you, I probably will watch it again. And knowing my 10-year-old the way I do, he'll probably want to watch it again. Mm-hmm. So I'll watch it again with him. Maybe we'll make it a family movie night. And while we do, we are going to enjoy a delightful beer. And I think you guys will appreciate this beer. It is brewed with the Friends of La Quince de Mononoke Café de Zaragoza. The label, illustrated by Antonio Bravo, pays tribute to one of the Japanese anime with most followers, Princess Mononoke.
Woot woot.
This beer can is an homage, looks very much like the cover art of this episode. A heavily hopped session IPA with Strata, Citra, Mosaic, and Dorado tropical hops. My favorite part is it's all suitable because it's gluten-free. It's suitable for everyone, but it pairs well with spicy pork.
Ooh. That's hilarious.
Which in a way, spicy pork started the whole story.
That's right. There you go. It's pairs well with marinated meat, spicy pork ribs, or a good pizza.
I didn't.
What are we going to eat there? Are we going to eat pork?
I completely forgot to do this. I feel sad because there's so much more. We talked about a lot for this movie, and there's more we could talk about. It passes the Bechdel test, the whole masculine, feminine, like male versus female, male. That I think that is, there's more to talk about there, but we can't get to it in one episode. What are we eating? I guess we got to have some spicy pork, but you also get food poisoning from it. But instead of calling the restaurant to demand a refund, you just move on with your life. And you realize that, it's not always tit for tat. Sometimes bad things happen and you just have to recover from them and move forward, knowing that spicy pork isn't maybe the food you should eat again.
Yeah.
There you go. Well done. Dan, what are we going to listen to?
Well, okay. I went a couple ways with this. First I was like, do I think about like the sort of ambient nature of it and then go into like a Brian Eno place, or where do I go? And there were a lot of music cues. I realize there's a danger to what I'm about to do, and I promise it's not coming from the place that it should not come from. The composer, I really, really enjoyed the music, right? Yeah. And my first thought was, I'm going to research this guy. But the whole time I was just thinking, this sounds a lot like a Reiichi Sakamoto's soundtrack, but in a way where it's just like, I know it's not him. It's clearly not the same person, but there's an obvious connection there and that's not why I went to the place that I went to. Reiichi Sakamoto is a musician who I love dearly. And he put out a song called War and Peace on his Chasm album. And it's where I went with this is the ambiguous nature of it and the questioning and the sort of trying to see points of view and trying to trying to see different points of view. And that's kind of what this piece of music encourages you to do. And yes.
Into it.
Is war as old as gravity?
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 This is
war as old?
This was written in response to a lot of the George W. Bush stuff, but it's pretty universal.
If I love peace, do I have to love trees?
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 I love peace. Do I have to love trees?
I love peace. Do I have to love trees?
If I love peace, do I have to love trees?
So the whole track just kind of like goes through this cycle.
Are there animals like peace and animals?
Or the animals that are like peace and animals that are like war. The way that he wrote a lot of the things that he wrote was kind of like almost like he would create his own samples where it's like, okay, this thing is going to have a cyclical nature to it, but then it'll build and build and build and build, and then something will break or shift or whatever. And this does that.
Are there animals that like peace and animals that like war?
Is peace quiet?
So interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I like how when he said his peace quiet, he had everyone at the same time say it.
Oh, interesting.
Anyway, some interesting things. That album, Chasm, is wonder. It's a fantastic album. Very well balanced.
Send me a link. Chasm? That's the name of the
Chasm
album?
is the-
Okay, I'll just look it up.
He's done a lot of soundtrack work. His catalog is insane. I think he's done every genre besides, I mean, maybe he has done country, but I haven't heard it. Like
Just like Beyonce.
Yeah, I mean,
That's right.
it's so all over the place, and everything is done well, whether you like what he's doing or not. It's done well. And
What's the artist again?
Ryuichi Sakamoto. I was going to spell it. I didn't want to do
Found
it that
it.
way. R-Y. Okay, yeah.
Thank you.
She's good.
Yeah. Anyway.
All right. Well, Audrey, again, thank you. It was really fun. Really enjoyed
so
it.
glad you liked it.
Very, very thought provoking.
This
Dan,
movie-
did you like this movie?
Well,
I liked it a lot.
Assuming.
Yeah.
I liked it a whole lot.
So two Disney adults watch a Ghibli movie and don't hate it.
Well, technically, Audrey, this is a Disney movie.
Yay! You're right. Damn
Technically.
it. Okay, now I got to pick something even more unpalatable.
We didn't know this before.
I
Distributed by Disney, I should say.
I'm in this weird place with like, I definitely want to explore more Ghibli and more, by extension, more anime, which of course, I am watching
Chainsaw Man.
so I get it. Yeah.
Fun show.
I haven't heard.
I don't think it would be Jimmy's
And
cup
I don't-
of tea.
Chainsaw Man? No, I think,
It's much more anime than this movie is.
no,
And
I
mean
think
that.
you're right, but I think that there's, yeah,
Like
you would have to
there are
be in
anime
such a specific
conventions
mood.
that are too intense for a lot of people.
I love, since we're on, I didn't want to get into Chainsaw Man very much, but since we're on it, I love that show so much.
I really enjoyed it too.
The sound design is so good. It is impeccably good.
It's weird. It's
And-
also like really oddly horny at times, and I'm like, all right.
It's so horny, and it plays this fun game. It's very much like David Lynch in that it's just constantly playing with your expectations and subverting them, and like there'll be this soul crushingly like touching and sad, like in tears. I can't believe that I am feeling this amount of emotion from a animated piece of work. And it's just, it takes your heart out of you and goes, here, look at this. And it just crunches and crunch it up. And then and then immediately after that, there's like a boob joke, and it's hilarious.
Yeah.
And then right when you think, okay, we're back into that groove, then like the most like horrific, like body horror kind of stuff happens.
Those levels are
And then-
just so out of control.
Yeah, and then at any moment they can throw this like super disturbing nightmare fuel at you. It's constantly just batting.
It's where
it's
do you want your
fantastic.
sliders? Like, do you want your
Yeah.
like crazy slider at 11 and your like comedy slider at a 2, or do you want like
Yeah.
your political intrigue slider at a 9 and like your
Mhm.
romance at a 5? Like,
And every
there's
character
really-
is in the worst situation that anyone could possibly be in. Everyone is just
Yeah.
getting taken advantage of constantly. It's so good. So good.
Okay. Did you enjoy the
All right,
movie?
watch
then-
Chainsaw Man.
No, not yet. Let's start slower. I think Chainsaw Man is like going from 0 to 100. Well,
Mhm.
I think Jimmy, if you could get into the first, like, give it 2 episodes, and if you're not into it, you might not be into it.
don't listen to
But
Dan. Don't listen to Dan. Did you hear me out? Hear me out. I've tried
All
to.
right, go ahead.
I tried to get people interested in anime before. Dan, just sit down. Sorry, Jimmy. Did you like the movie The
Put the hat
Matrix?
back on.
I've seen it once.
Okay.
But I do want to see it again.
Did it interest
I
you?
saw it like when it came out.
Okay.
And no, it did not.
Okay. In that case, then I won't suggest
It's a different person then.
I won't suggest that you watch Ghost in the Shell. Ghost in the Shell is like
maybe I should watch Matrix again.
If you watch Matrix
I'll
again
report
and
back.
you like it, then I suggest you look into the movie Ghost in the Shell, which is from the 90s, animated. And it's a very different tone from Princess Mononoke. It's less whimsy and a lot more existential. So
Ghost in the Shell. Okay. Yeah. All right. So
and then
Audrey,
Chainsaw Man
Dunes.
next.
And then Chainsaw. All right.
Do not watch Chainsaw Man with your kids.
No. And Dan, a recommendation for you if you like Chainsaw Man would be Attack on Titan.
I could see that. Yeah.
Attack on Titan has a lot of anime tropes in it though that are kind of like eye roll, but
yeah, I'm kind of anime adjacent and have been for a long time. I have friends that are into anime.
Okay.
I watch
Audrey.
I watch a streamer who is a self-professed weeb and he's way into anime. So like for me, it's just it's honestly the main thing that's keeping me from diving full into it is just attention level.
I hear you.
Like even with Chainsaw Man, which is totally my speed, I'm barely on like episode 10 or 11.
All right. So Matrix, then Ghost in the Shell for me.
It might be
all right, so
more boring than Princess Mononoke,
well,
but
I guess we'll find out. Okay, so next time, everybody, we're back to our regularly scheduled program, which is Brother Bear 2. No, we already saw that. Fox and the Hound 2. Fox and the Hound 2.
Okay.
Which is available on Disney+. Meanwhile, we have other shows on the network. Ears Up. That is all. And then there's the Puny Pod, and then there's the Star Wars show, and then, of course, the Supreme Resort.
Also, I'm going to promote this because the shows are actually getting, I don't know if I want to say good or listenable, but to a place where I think Eric and I are officially at a place where we're happy with it. Bowie's planning is happening. If you want to hear two people talk for about 3 hours about David Bowie and whatever else strikes our fancy at the time, that's basically, you've heard our shows, you've heard the network. It's me running the show. Whether that's a good idea or not is anyone's guess.
Bowie's Planning, different network, but it's all the same, right? So Bowie's Planning, and then Concierge, 856 Hour Ears. If you want to get your vacation plan, I want to shout out Christina.
Hey, Christina.
Who recently reached out. She and her husband are Canadian military, and they were looking for military discounts at Disneyland Paris. Unfortunately, they do not offer military discounts outside of the UK, France, and the United States. But they're looking to plan a trip to Disneyland Paris, and they reached out to Concierge. So we're your people to find out if you can't get discounts. And yeah, so then we have Fox and the Hound 2, followed by a couple other movies that probably aren't relevant to that, which are Disney princess stuff. Oh, after Fox and the Hound 2, the moment I've all been waiting for, Cinderella 3, A Twist in Time. Finally.
It's been a long time coming.
Yep. Disney Princess Enchanted Tales, probably not. Super Sleuth Christmas movie, probably not. And then Little Mermaid, Ariel's Beginning, before we get into the Tinkerverse to finish out the straight-to-video sequels, before we get into the live-action remakes.
Yeah!
Wow.
Yeah. Anyway, that's our show. That is Scraping the Vault listener or dealer's choice. This year, Alvin and the Chipmunks, A Chipmunk Christmas, and then God, what was that we watched? Hold on. Dan's choice was in January.
Labyrinth,
that's right. Labyrinth with the crotch.
Which you decided you liked.
Song.
I did, yeah. And then, of course, Princess Mononoke.
Yes.
Thank you for adding culture to our show. And yeah, Dan, take us out.
All right. Till next time, everybody, be kind.
Be kind
and
rewind.
Rewind.